You're listening to the weekly Parsha Podcast, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Beit Shemesh, Israel, 5777, 2017. This week's Parsha is Parsha's Balak. And in a departure from the way that I usually give my Parsha Podcast, I usually record it slowly and methodically and then edit it and fix it up. I'm actually videoing this podcast, so it's going to flow as it flows. Might not be as smooth as generally it could be. And the reason that I'm doing that is because it's in celebration of my 10th anniversary. This is the 10-year anniversary podcast of this Parsha Podcast, and I'm really excited about it. And it's going to be available also as a video on Torah Anytime, on YouTube, on Facebook. And I'd like to read with you from the Sefer Reb Chaim Friedlander about this week's Parsha. I also want to remind you about my Sefer, Perfectly Imperfect, Breaking Out of the Ordinary, Striving for Greatness. I think it's a great way to celebrate the 10th anniversary. If you want to find it, you can find it on feldheim.com. You can find it in any Svarim stores. And if you want to purchase it from me, you can send $26. You go on my website, click on the Buy Now page, and click Donate. Tell me what it's for, and I'll send that to you. And I'll be happy to inscribe the book itself. And I feel like this Parsha, this concept, this topic that I want to speak about is beautifully connected to the idea of what my podcasts have been about, how all of my podcasts began. And really, it's about the depth of what we're trying to do as Jews, what we're trying to do in our spiritual progress, in our relationship with Hashem. How do we climb that ladder? How do we recognize or access Hashem's will for us? And there's an amazing idea Reb Chaim Friedlander talks about. And the topic that he says is Remzim Lemi Shamayim V'nirmaz. The topic is when someone is hinted to from the heavens, that it's possible that Hashem, not possible, but it's likely that Hashem gives us hints. He shows us what He wants from us. God shows us His will for us. And He does so in many different ways. And the question is, can we see that? Are we able to recognize the hints? And of course, the idea of the hints is in our Parsha, in Parsha's Bilaam, Parsha's Balak, and the story of Bilaam. And Bilaam was this prophet who was hired by Balak, the king of Moab, because he wanted to be able to defeat the Jewish people who were now coming with a great force, with a great power, to try to enter into the land of Israel. And they were coming through the land of Moab. The people of Moab had already seen what had happened to other people who had tried to stop the Jewish people. They were decimated, destroyed. And so they wanted to hire Bilaam, who had amazing powers. He actually had true prophecy, perhaps. It's a machlokes, it's not clear. But he certainly had some power. He was talking to Hashem. God spoke to him. It wasn't perhaps in the same way as Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe is Vayikra. Bilaam is Vayikar. Something which happened by chance, so to speak. But the idea is that Bilaam was someone who had this power. Now, when they came to him, as we see in the first Aliyah, so when they came to him, so Bilaam turned to Hashem and he said, is it okay? Can I go with him? Can I go with them? And Hashem says immediately, no, don't try to curse the Jewish people. You can't curse them because they are intrinsically blessed. And even though in the end it seems that Hashem allows him to go, but truly there are hints all along the way. As he's moving, there are hints constantly. Hashem does not want you to do this. Hashem tries to stop him. The angel tries to stop his donkey. Eventually, the donkey's mouth, he's able to speak. Unbelievable miracles, unbelievable stories, very just amazing stories, amazing accounts. And as we hear this, we're like, doesn't this guy get it? Hashem doesn't want him to go. God does not want him to go and to curse the Jewish people. He does end up going. He does try. He doesn't succeed. He's only able to give blessings to the Jewish people. And so it's just interesting, this whole idea of the remez, of the hint. And I'll speak perhaps as we get towards the end of the podcast, I'll speak about, how I feel like it was hinted to me, so to speak, or I was guided to begin the Parsha Podcast, which is something that I should talk about in my book, and which I've mentioned in the podcast before. But Hashem shows us, Hashem guides us, Hashem wants us to know His will. The question is, are we willing or are we able to read that, to see that, and are we able to access that and accept it? Beautiful idea Reb Chaim Friedlander begins with. He talks about the fact that Ilfa and Rabbi Yochanan ramzu lahem yashamayim. It speaks about the fact that Ilfa, these two great sages of the Gemara, of the Talmud, so there was a hint. There was a hint to them, actually, to Rabbi Yochanan. This is the Gemara. He brings the Gemara in Tainas and Naf Chaf Aleph. Ilfa and Rabbi Yochanan havu garsi baraisa. These two great sages, Ilfa and Rabbi Yochanan, so they were learning Torah. And as he says, Masru Nafsham Alim Torah, they were completely willing to give up everything in order to learn Torah. They had a very difficult time. They were extremely poor. Let us go. Ilfa and Rabbi Yochanan said, both of them said, let's go and let's look at our poverty. We have a verse in the Torah that says, you're supposed to take care of yourself. You're supposed to take care, there shouldn't be poverty. So they said, let's go and take care of ourselves and let's go get a parnasa. Let's go be involved in our livelihood. We need to stop learning now. Azu aisvi tuti guda re'iyah. Okay, so they went on their way. They went on their way to try to find a livelihood. And as they were going, so they stopped in a certain place, and the wall that they were sitting next to was a wall that wasn't such a good wall. It was a dangerous wall. I don't know if they were aware of it. Could be they were aware of it. There was potential for it to fall. Krachi rifta. They were sitting down to eat some bread. Asu tre malachi ashares. Two angels came. Shami Rabbi Yochanan da Amar Chad Lachavre. Rabbi Yochanan heard that one was saying to his friend, Nishadi alayu haiguda v'niktalinu shemanichin chaya olam haba v'oiskim chaya shah. So the general principle is that, as he explains, that when a person puts himself in a place of danger, so a person can be judged for that. A person is supposed to keep himself safe, he puts himself in a place of danger, so then from the heavens, they look at a person more carefully, they scrutinize him, and they say, is this person doing what's right? Generally speaking. And if they're putting themselves in a place of danger, perhaps we should judge them in an unfavorable way because they're not taking care of themselves. So these two angels, Rabbi Yochanan heard them. One angel said to the other, let's throw this wall onto both of them and kill them. They should die. Why? Because they're leaving Torah, they're leaving the world to come, they're leaving that which brings a person to the world to come. They're getting solely involved in this world by doing Chayalim. They're involved in parnas and livelihood. That's not their place. That's not what they're supposed to do. Amar lei. So the second angel said to the first, Amar lei idach shavkinu deika behucha dekaima le shata. Don't do anything to them. Leave them, because one of these two great people that were leaving their learning is somebody who Rashi brings here. Asilis gadol veins manolamus. He's going to become great, and it's not his time to die. Rabbi Yochanan shama, Ilfa l'shama. Rabbi Yochanan was able to hear the angel speaking, but Ilfa did not hear. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan Ilfa. Rabbi Yochanan said to Ilfa, Shema Marmidi, did you hear anything? Amalei Lai. Ilfa said, no, I didn't hear anything. Amar, so Rabbi Yochanan said to himself, Midashami ano, Ilfa l'shama, from the fact that I was the one who was able to hear these angels, and Ilfa didn't hear. Shema mina l'didi kaima lishata. He was able to deduce that from the fact that he was allowed to hear what the angels were saying, obviously it was him, or it was he, who was going to be raised to greatness. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan ihader. Rabbi Yochanan decided to go back to the Beis Medrash, go back to learning Torah. There's another pasuk. The one pasuk says that a person is obligated, or implies that a person is obligated to take care of himself, make sure that he has parnasa. The other verse implies that no, a person needs to not be worried, because there's always going to be someone poor in the world, and therefore somehow it will be taken care of. Rabbi Yochanan hadar, Ilfa lehadar. So Rabbi Yochanan went back to learning Torah, and Ilfa went out for parnasa. Ad asa Ilfa. Between the time that Rabbi Yochanan returned and Ilfa returned, which was later, he had gone to make money and he came back, perhaps with having made some money. In the meantime, Malach Rabbi Yochanan became the Rosh Yeshiva, he became the head of the yeshiva, and I'd like to read to you, he quotes Rashi, Minuhu Rosh Yeshiva Alein Minighu, Mishu Rosh Yeshiva Yimagadlan, I say. So they made him into the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of the yeshiva, and the custom was that whoever they would make into the Rosh Yeshiva, they would raise him up, Mishalahen, Mashirin Oisai. They would give him money, they would make him rich. Kedamrin and Legavi Kohen Gadol, like we actually discussed not long ago, that when it comes to a Kohen Gadol, to a high priest, so if he didn't have money, so they would provide him with money. And that's what they did for Rabbi Yochanan, because they made him the Rosh Yeshiva. B'Sifra, like we saw in the Sifra, Yuma, in the Gemara in Yuma, so what we see happen was, Ilfa went off to try to make money, ended up coming back. In the meantime, Rabbi Yochanan became the Rosh Yeshiva, and he became rich from being the Rosh Yeshiva. Amrulai, he asiv mar v'goris, lo have a malach mar. So when Ilfa came back, they said to him like this. They said to him, he brings Rashi, if you would have stayed and studied Torah, we would have done to you what we did to Rabbi Yochanan. Ilfa was actually a greater sage, was more learned and more knowledgeable than Rabbi Yochanan. So Ilfa went, and he was upset. Amar Yikadishal li b'masnisa d'Rabbi v'Rabbi Oishia v'lepashtanale mimasnisan nafila maskiria d'sfinos v'tavana. He went to like this ship, and he said, if anyone can come here, ask me a question, anywhere in Shas, anywhere in the Talmud, and I can't answer it, I'll throw myself off of this ship. Meaning, he was confident that he knew everything. And that's basically the end of the story. So what do we see? We see that Rabbi Yochanan heard a remez, min hashamayim. It wasn't explicit, it wasn't clear, but he was able to deduce and understand what it was that Hashem wanted from him. And by deducing that, by understanding that, by going straight to the core of it, so he was able to, very interesting, he was able to, first of all, fulfill his life's purpose, which was to be the great Rabbi Yochanan, one of the greatest sages of the Talmud, and he was able to become that Rosh Yeshiva, that great sage, and he was able to fulfill his purpose. And he became rich. He became rich, which is an amazing thing. Okay, so that's what we have here. That's what he brings, the Gemara. Now, he brings us 4 other instances based on a medrash. It's a medrash in the Yalkut Shemaini and Shmos. That there are 4 places where people were near Maztu, where they were hinted to. Moshe Rabbeinu, Yaakov, David, and Mordechai. And 2 out of the 4 instances, the person who was hinted to did not receive the hint, did not get the hint, so to speak. And in the other 2 instances, they did indeed receive the hint. They did get the message. Let's see this together. V'sim ba'ozne Yoshua. The verse tells us that Hashem instructed Moshe, when he commanded Moshe, to place the information in the ears of Joshua. Magid. This teaches us, Shaba'oso hayom nimshach Yoshua divrei Rabbi Yeshua. Interesting. The sage who's speaking about Joshua, the original Joshua, was Rabbi Yeshua, was a Rabbi Joshua many years later. But he says that was the day that Yoshua became the leader. Rabbi Lazar Amadoi Omer Zeh echad mi'arbat tzadikim. Rabbi Lazar Amadoi says no. The verse that speaks about Hashem instructing Moshe to place the Torah in the ears of Joshua was a hint to him. And this hint was something that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't get. There were 4 that were hinted to, 2 listened, 2 didn't. Moshe nitan lo remez v'lo chash. Moses was given this hint, but he didn't hear it. Yaakov nitan lo remez v'lo chash. Jacob also received the hint, but he didn't listen. David and Mordechai nitan lo remez v'chashu. But King David and Mordechai Tzaddik, that's the story of Esther, they were given hints, and indeed, they listened to the hints. Moshe minayin, how do we know? From where do we see that Moses received the hint? Because the verse says, place it in the ears of Joshua. Amar lo, Hashem was hinting to him, Yoshua manchil es Yisrael haaretz, that Joshua would be the one who was going to provide the inheritance to the Jewish people. Meaning he was the one who was going to bring him into the land of Israel. So Hashem had already basically told him, it's not you, you're not going to be able to bring the Jewish people into Israel. And nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't know, the word defiance is strong, but in spite of the fact that he was told that he was not going to be the one to bring them in, he kept asking Hashem, please let me have an opportunity to come into Israel, to lead the Jewish people into Israel. Ultimately, he did not have that opportunity. So it was Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, so that's Moshe. Yaakov, Nitan lo remez, Jacob also received a hint, and he did not get the hint. The verse says, I am with you, I'll protect you in whatever path you go. Meaning Hashem says, he promises him it's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay, you have nothing to fear, you have nothing to worry about at any point. The verse tells us that Jacob, when he heard that his brother Esau was coming, so he was afraid. Vayira Yaakov moed, he was very afraid. Which doesn't make sense. Hashem gave him a hint. Hashem had told him, it was years before, but nevertheless, he was given a promise by God himself. You have nothing to fear. I will always be with you. Nevertheless, he was afraid that as a result of some sin, he would lose out that protection. But nevertheless, it was a mistake. He didn't hear the hint that Hashem would always be with him, that nothing could cause him to lose that. Okay, so those are the two instances of people who didn't hear the hint, who didn't receive that hint. Excuse me while I turn on the AC. Okay. Now King David nitan leremez v'chosh. King David heard a hint, and what happened? He heard the hint. He got the hint. Shneimar, the verse says, Gam es ha'ari, gam ha'doiv hiko avdecha. The verse tells us that King David, when he came to King Saul and he said, I want to battle with the great Goliath. So he said, what makes you think that you're going to be able to fight against Goliath? King David was a singer, he was a musician, he was a little guy, so to speak, and he was a fine person, he wasn't a warrior. What makes you think that you're going to be able to fight against him? King David said, Amar David, he had experiences in the field when he was shepherding his animals, shepherding his sheep. And a lion had come, and a bear had come, and he was able to stave them off and kill them. He was able to do that. Why? He said to himself, why did Hashem put me in that position? Why did Hashem give me that opportunity? Why did I need to get that special siyata dishmai, the special help, to be able to destroy those animals who had come to fight against me or to steal my sheep? He said to himself, it must be that at some point in the future, or perhaps at some point in the future, Hashem is going to give me an opportunity to fight the fights of the Jewish people and be able to overcome. And that's how he was able to come in. And indeed, he defeated Goliath because he had that siyata dishmai, that special help from heaven. But it was hinted to him, and he received that hint. He got the hint. Mordechai nitan leremez v'chosh. Also, Mordechai, in the story of Esther, he also received a hint, and he heard the hint. Shneimar v'chol yoyim v'yoyim Mordechai misalech. The verse tells us that every single day he was going over and over again. It was very strange, Reb Chaim Friedlander says. It was very strange. Esther, Hamalch, she was a tzaddikus, a great woman, a righteous woman, that she should have to marry an Ariel, an uncircumcised man, the king. He was a king, but nonetheless, he was not Jewish. It's for something forbidden in Jewish law. For her to be placed in such a situation, such a great woman, she was a prophetess. It was weird. It was strange. There had to be a reason for it. So Mordechai kept coming back, kept returning to the Shar HaMelech to see what was going to be. He said to himself, could it be that this righteous woman is married to this evil person? What could it be? And he was able to return. As a result of him coming constantly to the Shar HaMelech, to the king's gate, so he ended up hearing Big Son and Seresh. He heard those two people who wanted to assassinate the king. And as a result of that, it was written in the books, etc. The whole story was misgalgal. It rolled out from there. Because he heard the hint. He saw that something was amiss, something was afoot. And so therefore he was able to recognize that he was supposed to receive this message. So those are the examples that are given by the Medrash. And Reb Chaim Friedlander brings us back to Bilaam. And Hashem gave him numerous hints. And some of the hints were explicit, some of them were very clear, his chamor not wanting to go forward, that there was a malach there that he wasn't able to see, but the chamor, the donkey, was able to see. He didn't get the hint. And very interestingly and beautifully, he brings out that there were also more subtle hints. That when the donkey speaks to Bilaam, so he says to him, "Why did you hit me 3 times?" I'm sorry, the malach, the angel, says to him, "Why did you hit your donkey?" Zeh shalish regalim. The way that he refers to the 3 times, the way that the angel refers to it, is that he says shalish regalim, these 3 times. So, but the word shalish regalim, as anyone who's familiar with Jewish literature knows, shalish regalim is the way we refer to the 3 holidays of the Jewish people. And so there was a remez. Rashi says that there was a remez, there was a hint. You are trying to uproot a nation that celebrates 3 regalim, 3 festivals a year. So, and it's a funny thing because he doesn't get the more obvious hints. He's going to get that little subtle hint. But the idea is, as Reb Chaim Friedlander explains, that Hashem gives each person hints. Hashem gives each person opportunities to recognize what their destiny is, where they're supposed to go. Bilaam's destiny was not to curse the Jewish people, it was to bless the Jewish people. Try as he might, he couldn't defy that destiny. But it's possible, as we see, to hear the hints about our destiny, and heaven forbid to ignore the hints. Heaven forbid to ignore those hints and not to see it. And so the message here, the depth of it is that, hey, I need to hear. There's a hint here in our Parsha. There's many hints Hashem gives us, so many opportunities for us to see what is His will. But certainly as we read the Parsha, we look for that every week. And we see the hint, that we need to look for the hints that Hashem gives us. We also have to be careful. We have to know what's a hint, what's not a hint. Where is it that Hashem is indeed guiding us? But we saw R Yochanan was able to see that hint. Mordechai, King David, etc. And just to finish off, I want to share with you what was the hint from me that led me to begin this Parsha podcast. And I was learning at the time Maseches Rosh Hashanah, tractate Rosh Hashanah, and I was going over and over the Gemaras. I was learning it many times. I wanted to know it well. And there's a Gemara there, I believe it's on Daf Yud Aleph, page 11a, that speaks about a hadas, speaks about the myrtle branch. The myrtle branch is something which is besamah, has a beautiful smell, has a beautiful fragrance, and the verse speaks about hadas b'midbar, a myrtle branch in the wilderness, and it gives 2 different explanations of what's this myrtle in the wilderness. It's possible to be a hadas b'midbar, that it's possible that a person, if they learn by themselves and they don't share that Torah with anybody else, they're just like a myrtle branch in the wilderness and no one can smell because it's completely isolated. And then there's another explanation which says that a person who learns Torah and teaches it to others in a place where there's no one else to teach, so that person is like a hadas b'midbar, that whoever passes there, that myrtle branch which is in the wilderness, whoever passes by it, it's the only one that's there. That's the one that they're going to take and they're going to smell from. So because it's the only one there, it's going to be able to provide for those who are very thirsty for a smell, for a beautiful smell. And so I kept reading that, and at that time I had no podcasts yet. I had nothing. And since then, as you may know, I've done Baruch Hashem hundreds and hundreds of podcasts. And I was aware of the fact that on iTunes there were all of these podcasts that were going up, many of which, or most of which, were not authentic to Torah Judaism. Many of them were in fact Christianity guised as Torah, which is a sad thing. But I said to myself, here's this opportunity. It's called iTunes, it's called podcasts, and I'd like to try to do that. I began that 10 years ago, and you can go back and listen to those original podcasts. And I'm very excited to say that I took the hint that Hashem sent me from that Gemara, and 10 years now I've been trying to take the hint, looking for the hints. I encourage all of you to look for the hints in your lives, for what Hashem would have you be, and for what Hashem would guide you to, which is all of us, what we're all looking for, to try to fulfill who we are and what our potential is. So I want to bless you and ask you to please bless me. Hashem should help us that we should be zeicha to see the hints, to recognize the hints, to hear them. That's the first step. Able to have the zchus, the merit to hear the hints of Hashem. And Hashem should help us to recognize and listen to those hints so that we can indeed manifest and be all that Hashem wants us to be. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos. This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.